Hey, so this is another video request from Bethany Dugan. So hopefully I said that right, Bethany. Thanks so much for putting it in. Actually, it's not so much a video request. It's a really interesting thought that she shared. So I'm just going to read it off first and speak a little bit to it. She says, "Oh my gosh, especially so this is, sorry, I should say this is about just being yourself in dating." So the video was on that, but she speaks to a little bit more about the moving forward in the topic. Especially the thing where you talk about being in a situation with unfamiliar variables, and because of that, you end up trying to then control it. I always feel like I default to that in my first dates, and I've only had a second date with one guy, LOL. I get that. Emotional social intelligence ends up being like an instrument I've had to practice. Something I experience, and I'm wondering how many of you can relate. I can look back in time or observe a couple or a people or a group from the outside and make sense of what's going on socially or emotionally. However, when I'm in the middle of it, it's like I'm overwhelmed with the amount of and speed of information I'm expected to receive and respond to. I struggle to convey what I want to, especially in my nonverbal cues, which I've had to work on, and to respond both appropriately and within the time I'm expected to. I also tend not to feel the emotional impact of someone's words until long after the conversation is over. It has to permeate through my being first. I always wish I could hit a pause button, stop and think, and then come back minutes or hours later. I end up either shutting down, just kind of blurting thoughtless things. So definitely that it relates to, I'm sure, a lot of us. I know too for myself, I hear a lot of myself in those situations. I wanted to point out a couple of thoughts regarding what you mentioned, and the first was speaking to where you can observe others and you understand what's going on. You can pick up on what's going on. I definitely found that for myself. An example for myself was years ago, I was listening to one of my friends who was relaying a story about a situation that she was having with a certain individual, and there was some complexity. She was concerned, she didn't understand, and I went and listened to the entire thing and immediately started compiling analysis in my mind, and that was something that I'm like, okay, I'm going to share it with her. And I brought it up with her, and it turned out that it did, provide some validity in her inferences that she kind of took from it. So again, as always, if you are listening to other people, it is usually contextual. You're only listening to one person, or even if you're overhearing a group conversation, you're only listening to certain sides, so we can only take in what we know from that. But I found too that you can kind of immediately pick up on the context and understand kind of key steps. And then getting into the second part where Bethany is talking about her issue with being in the thick of things and having to make sense of a conversation that's going on around her, and feeling there's certain times that she's supposed to be putting in certain input. I have to say for myself, I feel, I'm looking at my notes, sorry. I feel that it took me a long time, but I picked up on what my strength was, which is the thinking side. And instead of going and trying to jump into a whirlwind of dialogue around you, I wanted to go and take a step back to similar to what was discussed in the first one, where it's more observing. So we do quite well at observing and almost third person mindset. So say in conversations that are, for example, a larger group, they mostly are not paying attention to what you're adding. Unless you're really wanting to insert yourself on something, there's probably a couple people that are really wanting to hear themselves, and they are doing kind of a match against the other person that wants to hear themselves, and they are going, you know, toe to toe. So this is a perfect opportunity to kind of take a step back and look at that, the larger dialogue, the larger context, and be able to kind of settle in that. And then if there is something you want to say, you can add it if there's an appropriate time. If not, if it's still kind of confusing and it's kind of run its course, then it's a great time to just move on and either excuse yourself to go talk to another group of people or go and change the subject, something like that. But there is tools to somewhat help. And we sometimes do get stuck in trying so hard, because we work so hard on being the social person that comes along with maybe the majority of folk, that we tend to want to compensate too much on that and almost give up or lessen the strengths we do have in the toolkit. So remember when you hear about, you know, the strong silent type and the whole characteristic of that, the Lone Ranger type thing. Not that I'm saying you need to be that, but there is, again, myriad reasons why there's stories about that, because when you do say something, it means something. You're not doing filler, and that potentially could be your strength when you are dealing with social situations. So anyways, hope that gave a little bit of perspective to that thought that was brought forward. Thanks again for your comments, and please, as always, if you have a video request, put it in the video or in the comment section. Thanks so much.